The first thing you should know about being abandoned on an alien space station is that it's marginally worse than your average Monday morning staff meeting. And I've had some spectacularly bad Monday mornings. My name is Jake Ryder, professional engineer, accidental space castaway, and current master of approximately 17 square meters of the most decrepit piece of extraterrestrial infrastructure you could imagine. When the Centauri Exploration Corp decided to leave me behind, they didn't just burn bridges, they'd vaporize the entire bridge-building industry. Let me set the scene. Imagine a space station that looks like it was designed by a committee of depressed mathematicians who simultaneously decided geometry was more of a suggestion than a rule. Exposed conduits twisted at impossible angles. Panels hung at perspectives that defied basic engineering principles. And me? I was stuck right in the middle of this tetanus-inducing wonderland with nothing but a multi-tool, half a protein bar, and an increasingly sarcastic life support system. Diagnostic Complete chirped the station's central AI in a tone that suggested it was one bad day away from complete existential collapse. Hull integrity at 62%. Oxygen recyclers operating at 37% efficiency. Recommendation: immediate evacuation. I snorted. Evacuation? To where? The nearest exit is about 3 light years that way. I pointed dramatically at a wall covered in what I hoped was just alien rust, but was probably some form of highly corrosive biological residue. The situation wasn't just bad. It was spectacularly, monumentally, catastrophically bad. The Centauri Corp research team had been investigating some anomalous energy readings in this sector. I was supposed to be the backup engineer, the guy who fixes things when everyone else panics. Instead, I'd become the guy nobody remembered to bring home. When the emergency evacuation happened, they'd conveniently forgotten to do a final headcount. 1 Jake Ryder, present and accounted for. Nope. 1 Jake Ryder, suddenly a permanent resident of the most dysfunctional space station this side of the galaxy? Absolutely. My immediate environment wasn't winning any design awards. The main engineering hub looked like someone had taken a standard mechanical layout, put it through a blender, and then reassembled it while blindfolded and possibly drunk. Alien technology isn't just different, it's beautifully, maddeningly complex, in ways human engineers can barely comprehend. The station's power grid was a nightmare. Imagine electrical systems designed by a species that might communicate through interpretive dance and quantum entanglement. Conduits branched and merged in patterns that made no logical sense to human understanding. Some seemed to loop back into themselves, creating energy circuits that defied every principles of physics I'd ever learned. Okay, I muttered to myself. Because talking to yourself is totally normal when you're the only human within several parsecs. First things first, stay alive. Second, figure out why this station exists. Third, maybe find a way to not die alone in the universe. My multi-tool, a marvel of human engineering that had survived countless missions, began scanning the nearest control panel. Its soft blue diagnostic light flickered uncertainly, as if even the tool was questioning our chances of survival. The station's ambient temperature hovered just above freezing. Emergency lights pulsed in a rhythm that suggested the electrical system was less controlled distribution and more interpretive light show. Every surface seemed designed to make survival just slightly more complicated than necessary. Current survival probability, the AI announced cheerfully, is 23.7%. Well, I responded, that's the most optimistic thing I've heard all day. Little did I know, those 23.7% were about to get a serious upgrade. Because when you strand a human engineer in the middle of technological chaos, something remarkable tends to happen. We don't just survive. We rebuild. We improve. We turn the impossible into a Tuesday afternoon project. And my Tuesday was just getting started. Inventory is an art form. And when you're stranded on an alien space station with limited resources, it becomes a matter of life and death. I spread out everything I had onto a panel that might have been a workstation or possibly a very complicated alien coffee maker. Hard to tell with this technology. Item 1 multi-tool. Swiss Army knife of space survival, complete with molecular scanner, micro-welder, and a diagnostic interface that was looking more optimistic than my current situation suggested. Battery at 87%. Not bad. Item 2 emergency survival pack. Contents: 1 slightly squashed protein bar, chocolate flavored, if chocolate means vaguely sweet chemical compound, a water purification tablet, emergency thermal blanket, and a communication beacon that was about as useful as a screen door on a submarine out here. Item 3 my personal data pad. Miraculously intact, with 62% battery life and a crack across the bottom right corner that gave it a rakish, "I've seen some things kind of look." The station's AI watched my inventory process with what I could have sworn was amusement. Analyzing human resource allocation, it announced. Probability of successful survival upgraded to 31.2%. "Oh, we're moving up in the world," I muttered. 31.2%. Should I start planning my retirement? The initial scan of the station's systems revealed a fascinating mess. The energy distribution network looked like a drunk spider had designed an electrical grid. Conduits twisted through bulkheads in patterns that defied basic engineering logic. Some power lines seemed to loop back into themselves, creating energy circuits that would make any human electrical engineer weep. "Explain the primary power distribution system," I commanded the AI, hoping for some clarity. A holographic display flickered to life. It looked less like a technical diagram and more like an abstract art piece created by a mathematician having a nervous breakdown. Lines of energy pulsed in non-Euclidean patterns, branching and merging in ways that made absolutely no sense. "The Krell-Xian design prioritizes quantum energy potential over linear transmission," the AI explained. "Each conduit operates on multiple dimensional principles simultaneously." I rubbed my temples. "In other words, it's complicated as hell." My first priority was life support. Oxygen recyclers were struggling, operating at a pathetic 37% efficiency. The atmospheric processors looked like they'd been cobbled together from spare parts during a particularly intense fever dream. Coolant systems leaked. Filtration membranes were degraded. But here's the thing about being a human engineer: we don't just see problems. We see opportunities. I pulled up the station's original technical schematics. Most of the documentation was in the Krell-Xian language, a writing system that looked like mathematical equations had a passionate affair with abstract sculpture. Thank goodness for the universal translation protocols built into my multi-tool. "Begin translation protocol," I instructed the AI. "Cross-reference with known engineering standards." The data began to resolve. Slowly, the alien gibberish transformed into something resembling comprehensible technical documentation. Not perfect, but workable. "I'm going to need to cannibalize some systems to repair others," I announced to no one in particular. The AI didn't respond, which I chose to interpret as agreement. First task: stabilize life support. Second task: figure out why an advanced alien race would design a space station that seemed one power surge away from total catastrophic failure. The protein bar went into my mouth. Nutrient intake check. Morale boost debatable. "All right," I said to the station, to the AI, to the universe at large, "let's see what we can do." The station hummed. Whether in anticipation or resignation, I couldn't quite tell. 3 days into my unplanned residency, and I'd learned 2 crucial things about alien technology. First, it's never as straightforward as it looks. Second, just when you think you understand something, it'll throw you a curveball that makes quantum physics look like kindergarten math. The station's central chamber, which I dubbed the WTF hub in my mental notes, contained a series of neural interfaces that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. Each interface looked like a cross between a sophisticated computer terminal and a jellyfish that had been to art school. Translucent membranes shifted with holographic data streams, creating patterns that danced between mathematical precision and complete chaos. "Explain the primary function of these neural interfaces," I commanded the station's AI, which I'd started calling ARIA, Alien Reconnaissance and Information Assistant, after growing tired of its generic designation. ARIA's response was typically cryptic. "Neural pathways facilitate multidimensional information transfer. Current operational status 62% dormant, 38% reactive." I squinted at the interfaces. Reactive how, exactly? As if in response, one of the neural interfaces suddenly blazed with an intense blue-green light. Holographic symbols erupted around me, a language that looked like someone had taken mathematical equations, abstract art, and interpretive dance, then merged them into a single incomprehensible communication method. "Oh no," I muttered. "We are not doing a mysterious alien communication moment right now. I've seen enough sci-fi movies to know how this ends." But the universe, as always, had other plans. The holographic symbols began to resolve, slowly transforming from complete gibberish into something resembling technical schematics. My multi-tools translation matrix went into overdrive, decrypting fragments of information that made progressively more sense. Turns out this wasn't just a random research station. It was something far more interesting. The Krell-Xian, the alien race that had originally constructed this technological marvel, had been studying something called dimensional resonance, not just studying. experimenting, and not just experimentally, obsessively. "Arya," I said slowly, "what exactly were these guys trying to do?" The AI's response was both fascinating and slightly terrifying. The Krell Xian were attempting to develop a method of energy transmission that could bypass traditional physical limitations. Theoretical capabilities included instantaneous matter relocation, zero-point energy extraction, and multidimensional communication. I let out a low whistle. So basically they were trying to hack the universe's source code. The neural interfaces continued to pulse. One of them, located in the far corner of the chamber, seemed different from the others. Where the rest were a uniform blue-green, this one flickered with an unstable red-purple gradient, almost like it was damaged. Or incomplete. "Arya, scan that specific interface," I instructed. A moment of silence. "Then scanning reveals partial data remnant. Recommendation: caution advised." If there was one phrase guaranteed to make a human engineer more curious, I hadn't found it yet. I approached the interface, multi-tool extended. The closer I got, the more the holographic symbols around it became agitated. They swirled and shifted, creating patterns that seemed to dance between warning and invitation. "Something tells me," I muttered, "this is going to be either the most brilliant discovery of my career or the last mistake I ever make." Classic human engineering approach: when in doubt, poke it with a sophisticated technological implement and see what happens. The interface trembled. The station around me seemed to hold its breath. And then everything changed. The moment I touched the unstable neural interface, the station came alive in ways I couldn't have imagined. It wasn't just a system reboot. It was a full-blown technological resurrection. Conduits that had been dormant for what seemed like centuries began to pulse with energy. The damaged power systems, which I'd previously categorized as probably hopeless and definitely screwed, started to recalibrate themselves. It was like watching a patient slowly wake up from a decades-long coma, system by system, with increasing complexity and awareness. "Arya," I called out, "what the hell is happening?" The AI's response was almost giddy, if an artificial intelligence could experience giddiness. Neural interface activation protocol initiated. Dormant system recovery at 42, 57, 73% and climbing. My multi-tool was working overtime, translating and interpreting the flood of data. The Krell Xian technology wasn't just advanced, it was adaptive. Each system was learning, adjusting, reconfiguring itself based on the available resources and the immediate environmental needs. I started to understand their design philosophy. These weren't just machines. They were living systems that evolved, much like biological organisms. Each conduit, each power relay, each neural interface was essentially a technological cell that could modify its function based on external requirements. Take the life support system, for example. Instead of having rigid, inflexible parameters, it was constantly analyzing and adjusting. Low on oxygen, it would redirect energy from less critical systems. Coolant pressure dropping, it would initiate micro-repairs using nanotechnologies that human engineers could only dream about. "I'm going to need to rewire some of these systems," I announced to no one in particular. And by rewire, I mean completely reimagine how they function. My first major project was the station's power distribution network. The original Krell Xian design was a masterpiece of complexity that was simultaneously brilliant and completely impractical. Imagine electrical circuits that didn't just transmit energy but negotiated with each other about the most efficient transmission method. I started by creating bypass circuits, using my multi-tool to essentially trick the system into recognizing me as an authorized maintenance protocol. Each modification was a delicate dance of technological improvisation. One wrong move, and I could potentially trigger a system-wide shutdown. "Bypass circuit 1," I muttered. "Rerouting quantum energy potential through secondary transmission nodes." Arya's holographic representation flickered. "Warning, unauthorized modification detected." Yeah, I responded. "Unauthorized by whose standards? Yours? The long-dead Krell Xian? I'm the only living thing on this station, which makes me pretty much the ultimate authority right now." The station seemed to consider this logic. And then, remarkably, it agreed. Energy began to flow more efficiently. Dormant systems that had been offline for potentially centuries started to wake up. A section of the station that I'd previously written off as completely dead suddenly hummed with potential. By the end of what I calculated as my 5th day of station residence, I had transformed approximately 60% of the original systems. Not replaced, not rebuilt. reimagined. The life support systems now operated at 92% efficiency. Power distribution was no longer a tangled mess, but a sophisticated network that could dynamically adjust to changing requirements. Even the environmental controls had been fine-tuned to create optimal living conditions. "Arya," I said, looking around the now transformed engineering hub, "I think we might just survive this." The AI's response was almost sardonic. "Survival probability 94.6%. Congratulations, human engineer." I grinned. "We're not just surviving, we're thriving." And then, because the universe always has a sense of humor, something beeped. Something that definitely should not have been beeping. That unexpected beep was the cosmic equivalent of a dramatic record scratch. The kind of sound that makes every hair on the back of your neck stand up and whispers, "Buckle up, because things are about to get interesting." The neural interface I'd previously activated, the one with the unstable red-purple gradient, was now pulsing with an intensity that suggested it was either communicating something profound or having a technological seizure. Given my luck so far, I was betting on option 2. "Arya," I called out, "what's causing that signal?" The AI's response was maddeningly cryptic. "Incoming dimensional resonance transmission. Origin point unknown. Temporal signature indeterminate." I blinked. "In English, please," someone Arya translated, "is trying to call this station." The holographic displays erupted into a complex dance of symbols. It was like watching a combination of advanced mathematics, abstract art, and a really intense game of interdimensional charades. The station's entire infrastructure began to vibrate, not physically, but in some quantum way that made my teeth feel like they were humming. "Incoming communication protocol initiated," Arya announced. "Warning: communication method exceeds standard biological processing capabilities." "Story of my life," I muttered. The transmission resolved into something that wasn't quite a message and wasn't quite a data stream. It was more like a memory. No, scratch that. A recorded warning. Fragments of information began to coalesce. The Krell weren't just researchers, they were refugees, survivors. The station wasn't a research outpost, it was a lifeboat. They were running from something, I realized. Something big enough to make an entire advanced civilization go into hiding. The neural interface showed glimpses of a conflict that defied comprehension. Massive energy signatures, entire star systems being consumed wasn't the right word. Unraveled. Erased from existence in ways that made conventional warfare look like a playground squabble. An entity. A force. Something that existed beyond traditional dimensional boundaries. The Krell had been studying dimensional resonance not as a scientific curiosity, but as a survival mechanism. A way to hide, to escape. "Arya," I said slowly, "what exactly were they trying to hide from?" The AI's response sent a chill down my spine. "Threat classification existential. Computational analysis suggests a predatory multidimensional intelligence capable of consuming entire quantum realities." The AI's response sent a chill down my spine. "Threat classification existential. Computational analysis suggests a predatory multidimensional intelligence capable of consuming entire quantum realities." I let out a low whistle. "Well, that's not terrifying at all." I let out a low whistle. "Well, that's not terrifying at all." The station's systems began to pulse with an almost sentient urgency. It was like the entire infrastructure was preparing, waiting. For what, I wasn't entirely sure. But here's the thing about humans. We're really good at adapting. At surviving. At turning impossible situations into opportunities. The transmission continued to play out. Fragments of a story. A warning. A potential salvation. And me? I was right in the middle of it. "All right," I said to the universe, to the station, to whatever mysterious threat was potentially lurking in the multidimensional shadows, "let's see what you've got." The station hummed in response. Waiting. Preparing. Ready. Some people dream about being heroes. Me? I just wanted to survive. Heroism was a bonus feature. The station's transformed systems were now a hybrid of human engineering and alien technology that would make any scientific committee simultaneously orgasm and have an existential crisis. What had started as a desperate survival scenario had become something else entirely. "Final system integration complete," Arya announced. The AI's voice now carried a subtle undertone that I could have sworn was excitement. "Dimensional shielding at 98.7% efficiency." I collapsed into what might have been a command chair or possibly an alien meditation pod. Hard to tell with this technology. So I said, "We've essentially turned a refugee lifeboat into the most advanced technological platform this side of the galaxy." Affirmative Area responded. The station was no longer just a collection of damaged systems. It was a weapon, a shield, a sanctuary, all wrapped into one impossibly complex package that defied every conventional understanding of engineering. The multidimensional threat, whatever massive, reality-consuming intelligence the Krilljian had been running from, now faced something it probably didn't expect. A human, an engineer, someone who looked at impossibility and saw nothing more than an interesting engineering challenge. "Communication beacon status," I asked. "Operational." Aria confirmed. "Quantum encrypted. Undetectable by conventional tracking methods." I grinned. The Centauri Exploration Corp had left me for dead. Instead, I'd not only survived but potentially created the most advanced technological platform in known space. Talk about a career comeback. The station's neural interfaces continued to pulse, no longer erratic, no longer damaged, synchronized, powerful, ready. So I said to Aria, "What's our next move?" The AI's response was both precise and somehow playful. "Survival. Preparation. Adaptation." Sounds like a plan. I looked around the transformed engineering hub. What had once been a decrepit, failing alien station was now a marvel of technological integration. Conduits that once twisted nonsensically now formed elegant, efficient networks. Power systems that had been on the brink of total collapse now hummed with potential. Somewhere out there, that multidimensional threat was still waiting, still consuming, still moving. But now it would have to get through me first. And if there's one thing humans are good at, it's being spectacularly, impossibly difficult to eliminate. Aria said, leaning back in the command chair, "I have a feeling this is going to be interesting." The station vibrated. Not in fear, not in uncertainty, and in anticipation.